This episode of the Oh No 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 podcast is sponsored by Dynamic Industrial Services, the rope access specialists. As long-time Raith Rovers supporters, we are very familiar with ropey performances. But if you need a service that's more Sam Stanton than Willie Accio, look no further than DIS. Operating across Scotland, they specialise in working at height, offering maintenance, inspection, repairs and more. So if you've got a problem at a height that even John Fredrickson can't reach, visit dynamicindustrialservices.co.uk to find out more. You can see the reaction. I'm not sure what time they're giving the medals out at, but the celebrations will be pretty good by the sounds of it. Those were the words of Detective Inspector Jim Goodwin of the Fun Police last night, echoing those of Special Constable James McPake earlier in the season. Now, my words for you, Jim, would be that it's very simple. If you don't like seeing and hearing the Rovers going tonto, why don't you just try beating us? Welcome back to the Oh No 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 podcast, where the doom and gloom of the last few weeks has been blootered into the abyss by the searing right boot of Scott Brown. I am Duncan Cameron, and to continue going daft from last night for the next 3 or 4 hours, today I'm joined by Blair Hopcroft, first of all. I don't think I even need to ask. How are you, Blair?
Buzzing, mate. I'm absolutely buzzing.
Excellent, fantastic. I've also got Robbie Weir too. How are you, mate?
Fantastic. Absolutely delighted after last night and looking forward to going over the game.
Me too. We've got Leslie Maybon too. How are you, Les?
88分で40メートルからスコット・ブラウンのサンダーバスタードでした。Absolutely fantastic.
That there was a slight delay there, I tell you this, it was absolutely worth waiting for. And also, rounding us off for today, we've got Scott Fleming too. How are you, Scott?
So good and so much better after last night.
I said just what the doctor ordered. Right, let's waste no more time. Let's start picking through this one because there was some very, very fun stuff to go through. But we'll start where we usually start. Let's get into lineups and the fact that Ian Murray just absolutely will not do what anybody expects of him at absolutely any point. Scott, you and I in particular, we talked on Thursday night about how do you get all these guys into the midfield, and kind of very controversially, I was like, I'd take Lewis Vaughan out, and you decide you'd take Sean Byrne out. So obviously Ian Murray decided to go the other way, and he took Scott Brown out of that. But just generally, give me your thoughts, Scott, on that kind of lineup when we saw it. And I suppose Callum Smith was probably the other one that was maybe the not a surprise, but that we maybe didn't expect.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But as we said the other night, it was always going to happen. He would find a way to go against what we've been saying. It's just, I don't know how he does it. He must listen, go, right, they've thought that, so I'm going to have to go this way. And it's
definitely doing what these clowns think, which is fair.
But I must say, I did not expect Brown to be one of the guys that would be left out. I thought, not just because he's captain, I just thought he's been playing quite well, even though we've not been in the best of form. I still think he is a leader on the pitch and just somebody that's an organiser, and he talks well, but he's also just a really good player. So I was a little bit surprised that he was the one to miss out, but obviously we'll talk about him later on. And I agree, Callum Smith, a little bit left field, well, in the fact that I think everybody thought it would probably be Easton or Connolly out of that, but the fact that he's went with Smith, he obviously must have thought Smith can give him maybe a little bit more work rate than somebody like an Easton, and that Easton might be worthwhile just throwing on with 25-30 to go. But yeah, I think the team, I wasn't disappointed with the team. I thought it was a pretty good team to go with. Yeah, it was a case of what was it going to be? Burn on his own with Stanton a bit forward, or was it going to be the two of them? Which it kind of ended up being a bit of both, because Stanton does what Stanton does and just runs everywhere and covers so much ground.
Yeah, the BBC I saw, they've sort of laid it out as a 4-4-2, and actually you might as well. I think that's fairly representative of what we saw. I wonder how much that was informed by the absence of Ross Docherty. Like, we talked about that midweek, and I think that's where maybe you kind of get away with not having Scott Brown, because there was no dig in their midfield at all. There was other aspects of it that we'll come on to, where I think they actually did pretty well, given they didn't have anybody who can tackle at all in the middle of the park. But I wonder if that helped kind of make that decision. Robbie, how about you? Do you feel kind of going at that one once we saw who was playing for both teams, I suppose?
Well, we had James Brown came in and he acquitted himself really well. Seemed to slot right into the defence. I think having that extra week where I know that he's not been training for the full week, but he's bedded in very well into that defence and looked reasonably solid. The main change for me was the return of the king, Sam Stanton, and he looked like he had not missed a single minute since. He was absolutely imperious in the middle of the park, just especially in that first half. He controlled the game so well, and we looked completely different as a side with Sam Stanton, which I know that a lot of people expected, but very, very good to see, and will give all of our support so much reason for optimism going forward. Other major changes, I mean, Smith and Mullen on the wings, bit surprised by that. Wasn't too certain if that was maybe the right call, but of course, Murray's made it, and you go with what he's done, and they both acquitted themselves reasonably well. And to go with Rudden up top ahead of Jack Hamilton seemed a bit of a surprise. Hamilton's been informed. He's been in and out the squad with injuries, but yeah, it paid off very, very quickly, which I'm sure we will come on to.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Blair, with the benefit of hindsight, I think he more or less got all those decisions right. Or is there anyone that you think probably actually, having watched that last night, that there could have been any changes with those?
That's a good question, actually, because before the game, for me, there was the three kind of question marks, I suppose, was the Burn over Brown, which to me, I'm happy either way. I've got to be honest. I said that I was listening to you guys midweek, and I was texting you as I was listening to it, and I was like, I kind of agree, but I think it's either Burn or Brown. I don't think there's room with Stanton to play both of them at the moment, so I was quite happy with that. Rudden over Hamilton, I'll be honest, I wasn't happy with before kick-off. I thought I got why he was trying to do it, and actually, I mean, it clearly paid dividends, so I think he was absolutely kind of vilified with that one. The one for me that I had big question marks on, and it's been mentioned already, was Smith on the left. I don't think that was necessarily fruitful in any way, shape or form. I don't think it's anything against Callum Smith. He worked really hard and he did what he did, but he just seems to lack the ability to get past a man. There was one point in the first half where they had a really loose pass, and the ball kind of ends up with Smith, and he's kind of breaking up the left, and he tries to beat Grimshaw, and basically just kicks the ball against his legs and then loses possession. And it's those things of when you look at what separates the top sides in the league from the rest is punishing mistakes. Like, it's that thing of any mistake, no matter how small, you try and kind of create something from it. And I did feel that Smith was maybe the one that didn't pay off as much. But in saying that, I'm not entirely convinced that Connolly or Easton would have given us much more in that first half. The way that the game kind of panned out, I don't think it actually I don't think it really was a bearing on the game, if I'm honest. But I thought it was a bit of a strange one when you've got so many players who can play in that position. I mean, Callum Smith in his last 3 appearances for us has played left wing back, up front, and now left midfield. Like, there's a wee bit of me thinking, like, give the guy a chance. Like, how's he supposed to actually ever get a run of form if he never plays in the same position for more than 17 minutes at a time, sort of thing. But yeah, it was a strong squad, obviously, to pick from, which is a massive bonus. Like, and Sam Stanton coming back is, you saw it last night, game changer, massive.
I'm going to come back to Callum Smith in a little bit, and I think that I think of everybody who's been on the pod, I think I'm the kind of biggest Callum Smith fan. And so I will come back and talk about what I think he brought to that game that I don't think, as you say, you would have got from necessarily a Connolly or an Easton or someone like that. But going into the game itself, then, I mean, it was a fairly kind of scrappy start. Really, that there wasn't it wasn't a game that settled down particularly kind of quickly. But Leslie, there are probably two big moments in the first half that I'll ask for your thoughts on. So there's a good early save from Kevin Dabrowski, but then anything you want on that, and then just take us straight into the goal, please.
I mean, I think before we kind of get to the Dabrowski save as well, I'm going to pick up the first Zach Rudden chance as well. So like Blair, I was a bit kind of like, hang on, why is Hamilton not starting? This is a bit of an odd choice. But it was vindicated pretty quickly when Zach Rudden zipped away. I mean, he's got, for a big lad, he's got a fair turn of pace. And he zipped away and forced a very, very good save out of Walton. And I thought, actually, hang on, we could be onto something here. Then, can't mind off the top of my head whether it was before or after, but Kevin Dabrowski pulled a fabulous save out. I was watching this at home on TV. Tony Watgotson's face, I'm thinking, oh no, this is absolutely what we do not want. BBC Scotland, the chicken celebration, one of the great characters of Scottish football, yada, yada, yada. Thankfully, Big Kev was having none of that and got down and made a fantastic save from the big flat track bully. So that was a fabulous save, as much as who it came from as anything else. I did kind of think, hang on, we could be for a long night here. When that happened, and it clearly wasn't all plain sailing. However, we then pretty soon after got our goal, which was again well worked. And just before we came on air, Graham had been saying in our wee WhatsApp, when did Liam Dick turn into Lewis Strap? And I was kind of thinking, like, so in the 2 weeks since the last game, I've got this vision in my head now of Liam Dick training on his own, like Rocky IV in the mountains, with weights and a medicine ball in like a wee barn, just throwing medicine balls as far as he can. And with a picture of Lewis Strap pasted to the wall like a Dolph Lundgren in Rocky IV to kind of get himself wired up. Because I don't know where this has come from, but he started doing excellent throw-ins. And he did one of these and came back out. And then, to be fair to Dick, and I've really slated Liam Dick in previous weeks for his ability to put balls in, but he put a lovely ball in. Great presence of mind for Zach Rudden to knock that over the keeper. And we found ourselves 1-0 up. So, yeah, I got great start to the game. And again, it was a pattern that we'd see for a lot of the rest of the game end to end.
I do wonder if that's something that the club have called out to focus on, because there was quite a few balls into the box where we fizzed it right across. I know Josh Mullen had one in the first half where I said to my friend it was like the Zidane volley at Hampden, but instead of Roberto Carlos's brilliant cross, it was Zidane's finish that was just getting pelted across because he hit it that quickly. But yeah, it did seem like we focused on long throws, and Jim Goodwin's called this out in his interview, saying that we're very direct and use of long throws. Apparently, just Jim Goodwin's teams don't handle long throws. So if you're an SPFL Championship manager and you're playing against Dundee United, here's a wee tip. Find a player that's good at throwing the ball long, chuck it in the box, and you'll have a good laugh.
See, just for clarity, if we're not allowed to celebrate, we're not allowed to score late on, and we're not meant to take long throws, what are we allowed to do at this point? Because it's getting a little bit kind of like, do you know what I mean?
let's
football's not really a massively complicated game, but we seem to be having all these extra caveats on what we're meant to do
Jim
now.
Goodwin, the man renowned as being a shithouse of a player, is now very invested in the Corinthian spirit of football. Is all I'm taking from this. So,
He's just. I mean, listen, we talked about it on Thursday, and I'm going to keep talking about it for constantly. And I know Ian Lato's already invoked the Goodwin factor, which is effectively that he just cannot cope under pressure. He just can't do big games.
Love it.
And it's brilliant fun and good to watch. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, for a guy who spent his playing career just elbowing folk in the chops constantly, to come out after games and just be so sort of torn-faced and like he seems like the kind of guy who should be able to just kind of front up and be like, listen, that was appalling. But he's not. He's constantly looking for these excuses. And the best one definitely was when they get beat by Morton at Tannadice. And he was like, they came and they bullied us. Like, yeah, that's Greenock Morton. What did you expect? Who?
Water is wet.
You're Jim Goodwin. Like,
yeah. Like, have you not been paying attention since 1893 or whenever it is Morton were founded? Like, that's what they'll come and do. And then, I mean, all right, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but while we're on it, he's great about this throw-in at the end, he's like, well, they didn't take the throw-in for the right place. Like, right, but it was a strike for 30 yards, though. Like, it wasn't like they threw the ball into the goal.
No, it was the third phase of play after the throw-in. Like,
exactly.
There was plenty of opportunity to deal with it before that.
Just like that kind of almost childish reaching for excuses where he'll just point at anything as opposed to taking any kind of responsibility. And he should be well practiced at it by now because he loses every big game he manages. And
it's really juxtaposed as well when you look at Murray, because we're off the back of a 5-game losing streak, and not once in any one of his interviews post-match has he made an excuse. Not one time. And there was plenty of things he could have moaned a little bit about. We could have got a decision here. But he was very much like, we had our chances, we never took them. Or we didn't play well enough. Or that back three really didn't work. Like, dead kind of honest.
The main thing he took was he said we were getting the luck earlier on the season, so I'm not going to complain about being unlucky now. And that, for me, summed up very, very nicely for me and Murray. But I'm sure we'll come back to Jim Goodwin and Dundee United and their fan base. And if we can spend a bit of time talking about Jim Spence as well later on.
I'll add that to my notes.
Right, Thank you.
Just read Jim Spence. Good. Thank you, Jim. Right, so let's get back to the game again. I hardly talked about this goal. Scott, give me your thoughts on that goal, please. And we should probably mention the possibility of an offside in there. I don't know how apparent that was. Did you watch was it the Raith TV footage that you were watching?
Yeah, I was watching that.
Yeah, get a good angle on that.
I mean, I actually switched over to BBC for after the goal because they had showed obviously slightly different angles. And on BBC, it did look as if it was a little bit offside. But, I mean, Rudden was also, towards where the linesman was on the other side. He's like the other side of his man, probably kind of hard to see. So, had the linesman been on the other side, I think it might have been given. But, no, from the throw-in again, Liam Dix launched it into the box. Again, we're all going, where's this been half the season? That he can't just launch it into the box to Hamilton or whatever, and it came back out to him, and then you're going, right, whatever you do, just put it in a good place in the box. Just do something instead of just blasting it over or whatever we've been doing a lot of the time. Just take your time. And he actually kind of almost rushed it a wee bit. I thought, oh god, he just hit it at the front post, and then Rudden's managed to get in front of his man and just that deft flick right over the keeper, and I went, please be under the bar, please be under. And it's clipped the bar and then gone in, and then obviously it's just bedlam. And you could tell Rudden loved that goal right in front of Dundee United fans. He's away, he's looking at the whole North Stand, then he goes, oh, there's more of yous down here. It just wheeled away there. But no, it was brilliant. And again, it was before the 10-minute mark as well. So it was like, right, we've got an early goal. We've seen this picture a few times recently. Let's screw the nut. And then, yeah, it was a perfectly timed goal. And just, I'm kind of glad for Rudden, because I think if it went, I know he's only played a couple of games, but if he'd started going a few games without a goal, then folk are going, well, why is he playing ahead of Hamilton? But I think he justified his early team place with that goal.
I think as well, you could probably say, like, even on the balance of the game last night, it did. I think United figured him out quite well, in the sense that they could see that he was the main man that we were trying to get the balls up to, and that Lewis Vaughan, they could handle Lewis Vaughan in the air just because of physical features, and that's not a slight against Louis in the slightest. Whereas with Rudden, they struggled initially at first, and then he went quite quiet later on. But like you say, Scott, I think that's a very good point. If he can nick in and get one chance and score one goal like that, then nobody's going to complain. Nobody's going to say it. They're going to say, oh, he scored against Dundee United. You remember the goal. You don't remember the other bits of the performance, really. So, fair play to him. Really good finish.
Yeah, and I thought his movement was very good. And we're delighted to see Jamie Gillan scored for Dundalk last night.
Yeah.
An excellent free
Great
kick.
finish. Yeah.
And I'm going to draw a comparison, and I don't mean to be critical when I'm doing it, but we talked a lot about Jamie Gillan and his movement, and he would go wide, and sometimes when he was playing as the striker, he wasn't kind of where you would want him to be. I thought what Rudden did was what I would hope we would have seen more from Jamie Gillan, if that makes sense. Where his movement was very good, and there was times when he was going out wide. We'll talk about there's kind of two Mullen chances. There's the one, as you said, Robbie, where he kind of fires it across the goal. The other one, when he goes clean through, comes from Rudden kind of going out wide, and he turns that ball really, really well done. And it's knowing when to go wide, when to drag a Kevin Holt or a Ross Graham away and create that space. And I think that's what the Dundee fans told us we were getting. It's a striker who, he's not out and out. He's not going to go and score, 30 goals a season. Nobody's loaning those guys out, but he'll create space, and that's absolutely what he did. On top of his goal, and Blair, just to kind of give me your thoughts then on that. I suppose probably maybe the first half hour actually, because we've got sort of the goal, and then after that is Mullen, and it's really just from kind of good pressure from the Rovers. They kind of force an error out the defender. Mullen gets the shot across. Then Mullen goes clean through, and the keeper makes a good save. It's quite close to him. Just generally, that first half hour, did you think that was with the Rovers kind of on top, in your opinion?
I think that's an interesting one, because it depends how you kind of define on top. They obviously had a couple of early chances, so did we, but I'd say they had probably the lion's share of the possession, but didn't really offer a huge amount with it. So I think it's a funny one, because I think as a United fan, you'd be sitting there and thinking, we're on top here, we're all right, we've got the ball, we're kind of controlling things. But they looked a wee bit more kind of vulnerable. I said on the podcast when we signed Rudden, my literal feeling on it was meh. And I'm going to go ahead and take it back now already, because what he offers us is something different to what we have, which is really important. And you're right, I was meh because I didn't think he was going to chip in with an awful lot of goals. And I still don't think he'll chip in with an awful lot of goals. I think you're right. But he's a bit nasty, isn't he? He's got that kind of horrible streak in him. And I like it, because I tell you something, if you offered those two centre-halves last night playing against Rudden or playing against Gullen, they'd take Gullen every day. Because Rudden he's I'm going to say he's rotten in the air. He can't header a ball, but every single time he makes his centre half win the header, there's no easy headers against him. Do you know what I mean? Which is ultimately all you can ask for somebody who isn't like a Jack Hamilton, who isn't particularly really strong in the air. So no, the opening half an hour, I thought, I'm going to say this now, I thought United were actually really quite good. I thought their movement, the seemingly lack of a formation, it was bizarre. And it took us about 15, 20 minutes for the back four to kind of really cotton on. That early, the very first shot on goal for the left back came from just this rotation of players moving around and us getting kind of dragged all over the place. Fotheringham dropping in, Witherspoon playing as a centre half at times, and then coming up and popping up on the right wing and then the left wing. There was so much kind of fluid movement for them. Tony Watt dropping deep, Lewis Moult pushing wide. It was just this constant movement that it took us a while to realise you can't follow your man. You're going to have to hold your ground, pass him on to the next guy. Kind of Sean Byrne took a wee while to kind of cotton on. He had to come in and kind of help out. But once we kind of got set with that, I did think we looked pretty likely. And the two chances that Mullen had, I mean, one comes from Ross Docherty's just inability to clear a ball. It's not Docherty, is it? You're looking at me with that face.
It's no Docherty. He wasn't playing.
It's no Docherty. He wasn't playing. Ross Graham, thank you. Oh my God, why can I not do names? So Ross Graham's inability to clear a ball, and Mullen obviously pounces on it. And it's a good effort, in all fairness. It was a really good effort aiming for that bottom left-hand corner. And, I mean, Rudden's going mental at the back post, but there's nobody crossing a ball there, like, away in raffle. Not happening. The second one, I think you've hit the nail on the head, Duncan. Really good play for Rudden to pull wide, draw the man in, and then just on the half turn, just hooks the ball through, and Mullen's away. I think Mullen had done a fair bit of running in that half, and I think he knew himself he didn't have the legs to take a touch and bear in on goal and beat the man kind of thing. So I think he thought, I need to take this early before the keeper sets himself. And he's just a bit unfortunate. It's really good technique, actually, but just a bit unfortunate that he plays it right at the keeper's legs. I think had it been a yard either side, would have probably been 2-0 up at that point. But I thought it was a really entertaining first half, actually. A really good... Because I think that wasn't the story of the second half. I think it became quite scrappy. It became quite stop-start. But the first half, from a neutral's point of view, must have been a decent watch, I would think. But no, I was really pleased with how we kind of acquitted ourselves, and the back four in particular. Like Keith Watson, just, I mean, you said it the other day. Like he's the known. You know exactly what you're getting, and so does Ewan Murray. And more of that. I loved it.
I said in the group chat, it must have been quite a cathartic experience for Keith Watson, because I mean, I doubt anyone says it personally to him in the club, but like you get people that are sort of saying, "Oh, that's that," and we were guilty of it ourselves. You've like say, 3-week injury, and then it keeps rolling on, and then all of a sudden it becomes longer term. You get people that are coming out like, "Oh, is he finished? Why have we not got another centre back in?"
Yeah.
Like all this sort of chat, and that'll feed its way through. And I've absolutely no doubt. I know that he's not really, to my knowledge, on the socials or things like that, but it definitely feeds through. So for him to come in and put in that performance and show to everyone, like, I'm still here, by the way. There's a reason we're not signing another centre back. There's a reason Ian Murray's been very, very patient. And it's the same. I said that in our group chat. There's a journalist that's been linking Lee Ashcroft to Dunfermline, saying that that's likely a loan deal that's going to happen. That's going to be absolutely irrelevant for us now if Keith Watson has 13 more games like that, because he'll be a standout player. So, aye.
Yeah, I thought the kind of... I think it was that very first chance with Tony Watt. It's either that or it's the one, as you say, where the McMahon gets a shot away. It was relatively early doors. It was the only time, really, in the whole game where the Rovers back four were pulled about a little bit. They really settled down after that. And as you say, Blair, there's loads of movement in that Dundee United team. But the Rovers back four, really in stark contrast to the last couple of games. And I don't think the influence of the hardest working right back in show business, James Brown, can be like understated there. It was like a real classic back four performance, just solid, never crossed one another's lanes almost.
Yeah.
Like the left back was just left backing all night. Your centre halves stuck to their roles. The right back's doing the same thing.
Defenders that defend.
Exactly, and that's it. It's just rock solid. And then as you talk about the midfield, I thought that was the one big sort of tactical thing that Jim Goodwin tried. He's got this big problem with Ross Docherty, as I said already. He's the only midfielder in that entire squad who can tackle. It was a little bit like us last year when we only had Scott Brown.
Yeah.
And there was that thing kind of, it was a kind of pie and bovril thing, but we went to Firhill, and before we knew Scott Brown was missing, and everybody was like, we're going to get overrun the midfield. Everybody, because it was like, there's nobody who can tackle. And then all the Thistle fans are like, oh, you're just, like trying to play down your chances. And then we just
Scott
go
Brown
overrun
must
the
be
midfield.
the best player in the league, they were saying.
Exactly. And I think Dundee United are a little bit like that. So with Ross Docherty missing, Jim Goodwin's got to kind of square that circle somehow. And what he does is he puts David Witherspoon in nominally as a central midfielder. And I mean, he's definitely not going to tackle. He's definitely not going to do that at all. No. And in the first kind of 10, 15 minutes, I was looking at it and I was like, I hope they don't put David Witherspoon on. This is, like, it didn't look like he'd done anything. And then you start to realise exactly what he is doing, which is, as you say, he's basically playing in a free role. And this is where I'm going to launch my impassioned defence of Callum Smith. In the first half in particular, Witherspoon was peeling off onto that side. So Liam Dick is marking Fotheringham, and Callum Smith knows he's supposed to be on Grimshaw. And Witherspoon's standing next to him constantly, just peeling off on that side. And you can see Callum Smith with his arms out, shouting and bawling at Sam Stanton and at Sean Byrne. Like, look, one of you needs to be here. But that's so difficult to do because 30 seconds later, Witherspoon's appearing on the other side. And I thought Callum Smith in particular did really, really well, given that that's not his game, to do all that hard work, just tracking extra men coming into his area. And that was how it looked to me in that first half. Like, if anything was going to happen, there was sort of two angles that Dundee United had. One was getting Witherspoon on the ball, and the other one was when Kevin Holt was basically just running out of the defence, which is always a tricky one to kind of manage. And it's a bit of pressure from kind of Witherspoon getting involved further up the park that eventually sort of leads to the corner. But that, and just I thought that was a real. It's actually, it's quite bold and it's an interesting one from Jim Goodwin. And to be fair, I think actually pattern of the game wise, it worked quite well. If you compare it to the game at Tannadice, where he had the same problem and they played Jordan Tilson next to Sibbald, and he was garbage. Like, he was just really, really poor, didn't get involved, and they got overrun.
I think the big change though was the Fotheringham for me was the one that I did not see that coming. I expected him to do the Middleton role on the other side. Like, Middleton just hugs that touchline. He doesn't really move. He doesn't really come inside. He's there to cross balls. That's his job. And I kind of saw Fotheringham as going to be doing the same thing, and he wasn't at all. Because both of their good chances come from Fotheringham being involved in the box, basically. The little touchdown to Molt, and then there was he was involved in the one that went to Watt as well, I think. And it is that thing of he drifts in and nobody's picking him up. And it's hard because do you expect your left midfielder to drop in? Is Sean Byrne coming in? That's where having the one holding midfielder probably leaves us a little bit vulnerable, was just the sheer numbers that they had and the fluid kind of movement. But it was an odd one. But Fotheringham looks 10 times the player he was when he was with us on loan. Like, he looks so much better than he did when he was with us. And I know he was young, but he's really kicked on.
Yeah, that's again, to talk about something we've talked about a lot recently. Sam Stanton is a huge bonus when you're trying to do that, because it's like we've said enough times, because he just does everything all at once. You can do that where you've got Sean Byrne is sort of nominally your holding midfielder, and then Sam Stanton's three other midfielders all in one.
Yeah.
And I don't think we cope with that fluidity anywhere near as well if we don't have Sam Stanton in there somewhere. We just don't. Even if you play Scott Brown, who's, a better defensive midfielder, I just don't think you're able to cope with that kind of dynamism, half as well. And it's a real attack is the best form of defence approach from Dundee United, which in the first half meant there was chances for both sides. Obviously, we'll come on to the second half, but before we get there, they did get the equaliser. Comes from a corner kick. Les, give me your thoughts on this one, please.
It's one of these ones. I mean, I'm always a bit reluctant to kind of break down something like that and say, oh, this man should have picked something up, because I think at that point you could see, on the balance of play, they were going to get a goal by hook or by crook. Nonetheless, at the time I was more than a wee bit grumpy, because we're still statistically at something like 33% of our goals that we've conceded coming from set pieces, and like about a quarter of the goals we concede seem to be corners from our left or the opposition's right. So just seeing that happen again for the umpteenth week running was more than a wee bit annoying. And I do hope that, with Watson back and with Brown being in the team now, that we might start to settle down and get a bit of discipline. I think we're now at the 16th or 17th game where we've had a different back four. Hopefully we're going to get that settled down now. So, Ross Graham peels off, gets the barges dick out the way or wherever it was, gets the header away, and it's straight into the corner, and it's a scene that we have just seen so many times this season and last season. But as I say, I think it wasn't against the run of play by any means. Had that not gone in, I think they'd had other chances. We couldn't have grumbled too much with them getting that equaliser. What I then thought was, oh God, don't concede another one, because that's my other bugbear, is us conceding goals in quick succession. And so my immediate thought was, okay, that's rubbish. That's really, really bad. Let's not lose another one immediately after. But yeah, we're at something like, I've got a running total, something like a quarter of the goals we concede are corners from that side.
Yeah, it's definitely a weak point, and I mean it's a very good delivery. Robbie, did you think there might have been a foul in there?
You look at the screenshots. I did enjoy the recent Vox Pop that was like STV News or something talking about VAR, and the guy goes, "It makes a peck in the cheek look like a porno." And I think that it's very similar when you do sort of screen grabs of Louis Moat's got his arm across. I can't remember who it was that was marking him, but he's got his arm across, like just completely bodying him out of the way. It's one of these ones, 6.5 a dozen. It's very. Some referees will maybe stop it, others will just keep going. But some games you get the breaks, some games you don't. I don't think it was a foul in the build up to the corner. My folk about me were going a bit tonto about that, but I think the ball was well away by the time that Sean Byrne was down on the deck. And yeah, Leslie summed it up really nicely. I think that a goal had been coming. It doesn't come too out the blue, and it wasn't against the run of play. But as well, we did the important thing, which was we got to half-time and kept it a draw and reset. And you do have a lot more faith in this back line than maybe previous iterations of backlines that we've had before over the last few months. So it's been mentioned, but if we can get a consistency in that, then fingers crossed, because that's the main thing that's worked for Dundee United so well. They've had that back line that you can name off pretty much time and time again. So if we can get that for 13 games, then see what happens.
And Scott, kind of two questions in one really for you. Did you feel like the Rovers were kind of hanging on for half-time a little bit, and then kind of going into the first sort of 15 minutes of the second half? I mean, did it feel like the tide had turned a little bit in terms of the pattern of the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had actually put into the group chat saying that we looked like we needed half-time. Just that, as Les has touched on it, we do seem to, especially in recent weeks, like conceding a couple of goals quite quickly. And so it was a little bit of worry. I mean, the good thing was that it was, I can't remember the exact minute of the goal, but it was only about 10 minutes to half-time, roughly. So it was like 5 minutes to half. So it wasn't that long to hold on. And I just thought, right, let's weather a wee bit of storm here, get in, reset, get Murray will have a chat with them and see what goes on. But the second half, then, yeah, it kind of continued a little bit. I didn't think they were absolutely battering the door down, Dundee United, but it was they had most of the possession in that sort of first 15-20 minute period. But and then a couple of corners and stuff like that. But I still didn't think that I was too worried. I thought we just need to. One thing I did notice a lot of the time, and it was a little bit of a bugbear, was the fact that we had the two midfielders, whereas they had Craig Sibbald on his own. I know Witherspoon was playing centrally, but he's not a central midfielder.
Yeah.
But they were the ones that seemed to be taking the ball down and controlling it. And I thought, this is what we should be doing, really. And eventually we started to do that, and that's when obviously we went on to start creating a couple of chances, get a few corners and stuff like that, and come back into it. But yeah, I'm sure one of you guys will go into it. The substitutions that came on later, that completely changed the game.
Yeah, the thing with the first 15 minutes of that second half, really until Hamilton comes on, the big contrast for me from the first half to the second half was Ross Graham, who was playing in central defence for Dundee United. Now, he got the big header for the goal. I think he obviously took confidence from that. But in the first half, when they were knocking the ball about, I thought he looked really uncomfortable. Like he didn't want it. And, you know, quite naturally, they had a fair bit of the ball. And he was constantly just trying to shuffle it either side. Like, did not want it. Didn't want it at his feet. Every time it came to him, it was just straight to Grimshaw, straight to Holt. And in the second half, right at the beginning, he was just putting his foot on the ball, looking around, picking passes into the midfield that he hadn't done. And it was like that, you know, the energy and the press had just dropped off a little bit, and it was giving them a foothold in that game. And they didn't really create an awful lot, but just in terms of the way that in the first half we were breaking out a little bit and we forced some chances. In that early period, I think we just didn't. But Ian Murray, I mean, relatively early for him, to be fair, it is pretty much bang on the hour mark. He brings on Jack Hamilton, and a couple of minutes into Jack Hamilton's evening, possibly the defining turning point of the game. And I said, we did predictions on Thursday night, and I think I said 2 each. And I think we'll be 2-0 down, and we'll come back and we'll look back on that as like the turning point. I think we got a very different, but I quite possibly a turning point moment there from Jack Hamilton. So Blair, just recap it for us and then give us your thoughts on it.
So I was going to say very much the same thing. It's big moments in games, and actually I'm going to go back just a little bit before half time, just after they score. Middleton gets through 1-on-1, and Big Kev comes bounding off the line and makes that save. And that was another big moment for me in that first half in particular. Of, do you know what? Like we're here to play. Like let's have it. And then second half, like
Tony Watt got in his face as well after that.
That's
goal.
right. Who, by the way, if I actually watched it back this morning, he apologised to him. Tony Watt did. Yeah, bizarre. He's an absolute cretin. But let's not talk about him. So we get into the second half, like you say, and it's they're very much on top. I don't think there's anybody who's going to say anything otherwise. Certainly first 15-20 minutes, they were on the ascendancy. And then obviously the ball breaks up the left, and the goalie goes out to kind of usher it out of play, but it's not really going that quickly. So Jack Hamilton goes for the ball, and for me is perfectly entitled to go for that ball, but not like that. It was tremendous. And it was one of them, because he's obviously, there's something, I don't know what it is, but there's something in Jack Hamilton's thought to himself, nah, this isn't happening. He goes straight through him, and just the way that he slides through him, he ends up kind of back up on his feet, and he's right over the top of Walton, giving him it, like laughing in his face. It is so good. And Walton gets up, and it's Connolly that drags him away. Absolute genius. And Walton's giving it the hold me back,
man.
hold me back.
With Connolly
And
dragging him
Hamilton's
away.
laughing in his face. And its thing is, I know I get stick for talking about ice hockey, but it's one of those moments you
Sorry,
get them in
John.
ice hockey games though, where somebody drops the gloves and has a fight, and you think, what's the point? And it's about getting the team up for it, getting the crowd up for it. It just you could actually feel it in the South Stand. Like the energy just went rah, like it was great.
Straight after that, right, there's a singing section on the far right of the stand. But can we just give kudos to the likes of Gav Finlayson, Martin Granger, the lads, Dario Valenti, etc., the group that are up the back of the South Stand? Because after that, they started getting a few songs on the go, which then feeds into this group on the far right starting to actually get a bit more involved. And that was, again, touch on it before, wanting to be a dampener, but like, group on the far right got plenty of chance going over time, but just a bit more, just keep sticking at it, and hopefully it can build naturally. Flares on the pitch was a bit shan't to see though. Not a fan of that. Like flares in the stand, and I get that there was a few bits and bobs that are done left, right, and centre, but the club, there's a reason that the stewards were over there straight away, giving them the Gestapo treatment, as my friend said. But aye, that was a turning point and a half though.
Loved it.
And
I've watched that
very
video
funny
about
to see.
20
And
times
you could tell that Jack Hamilton is in his head straight away is thinking, I've got you, like mentally, I've got you. Like you're mine now. Like complete control of the situation.
Could I just add something as well there very briefly about Hamilton? And I think it's worth remembering Jack Hamilton's still a very young guy. He's a very young guy, and you go back 2 or 3 months, and he was very. I mean, he's a big physical lad, but he was quite kind of quiet and timid on the pitch.
Yeah.
That says a lot about how Jack Hamilton, I think, has come on as a player, and it says a lot about where his head is in terms of confidence in his game. Because you see, he's right in there. He goes into the guy, he's up and he's laughing, and he's over at the ref, he's putting his arm around the ref, and he's saying, "All right, look, yeah, I know, I got a bit carried away. I'll take the card, I'll take the L." And he's not, he's not timid and cowering away. And as I say, I think that says a lot about where Hamilton is at as a player, and just the confidence that those goals have given him.
I spoke about this last night. I actually wonder if, like when Rudden gets picked ahead of him, and everybody says the same thing. Oh, but Rudden will maybe run a bit more, and he'll maybe put himself about a bit more, and he'll noise them up a bit more, and he'll leave a tackle in, and he'll kind of be a bit more of a thorn in the side. I love the idea. I've used it a few times, but the tiger cage. And it's like Jack Hamilton's in the cage and he's like, let me out of the cage. And he just, I've watched it about 20 times this morning. It gets better every time. And it's the Walton pretending he's a hard man, being held back by Connolly.
You know what it is? It's I kick the arse out of this all the time, but the Lemmy sketch, where it's just the old man and he's in the pub and it's like, oh, wee orange juice for the lady. And then he just imagines it, but it's just this guy in his head, and he just turns around. Oh, you got a reaction out, you? You've got to give him that one.
But it was all about the reaction. Like that was just for a number of different plays. He's looking to wind up the keeper, and he gets the keeper booked, which is very handy. Gets the reaction at the stand. Gets reaction from his teammates as well. But I did laugh when you said that like Zach Rudden brings a kind of nasty streak, knowing that we still had this to come, and it's exactly that. But the thing would be the only way I could think to describe it is it was like throughout that, Jack Hamilton sort of adopted the body language of like a Cockney white boy, just that I've never seen from before.
Danny
It
Dyer.
helps that his collar has popped
His
up.
collar's up.
And it's when the referee's booking him, he's still kind of doing that kind of bounce. And he turns away and he's got this big smile on his face and he just kind of folds his collar down, just like back to business. Like, job done. Put that character back in the box until next week. Let's get back to the football. And it absolutely, that's a real turning point. Like, quite literally, the pattern of that second half really changes at that point, and it suddenly becomes a real game again. With the 15 minutes before that, it was kind of attack versus defence. And again, as I say, Dundee United didn't really create a lot in that time, but they very much had the ball at their feet, and we didn't. But that, I just so much credit to Jack Hamilton for that. It was just exactly what we needed at that point. And And then I think sort of the game again, though, there's still a little bit kind of bitty. It's a little bit back and forth. And you get kind of another 15 minutes down the line. And Ian Murray sort of rolls his big dice. And we talked before the game about the strength on the bench and the fact that I think quite simply we've got better players on the bench than Dundee United do, and the longer the game goes on, if it's still a contest, you can make a difference. And I mean, boy, did it. So 74 minutes gone, and he brings on Dylan Easton, Scott Brown and Aidan Connolly. And at that point, I think you could see Dundee United did not fancy it. We get the return of everybody's favourite since Championship feature, which is opposition managers taking off their best players. Just as 5 minutes after the Rovers have made their changes, Jim Goodwin decides to remove David Witherspoon, who, as Alan Temple in the Courier described it as this kind of quarterback role where he's just dropping into space, always available for a pass, never wastes the ball. And he takes him off and puts, is it Cujo that he put on? It's just like another sort of
mockery.
No, it was mockery that he put on. You're right. Cujo came on right at the end. And Mockery's just not going to do that for you. He's just, maybe he's fine, but he's not going to do what Witherspoon's doing. I mean, we were in the stand, there was a break in play, and my mate was saying, he's like, Witherspoon's just pulling the strings out there. And as he turned back to the pitch, they were taking him off. It's like, oh, right, good. Thanks, Jim.
And he'd already taken off Louis Moult 2 minutes earlier. Or no, 5 minutes earlier. He'd taken off Louis Moult and brought on the boy, is it Grieve, that's on loan for St Mirren?
Yeah, there was a 6 minute period where the substitutions, there was 5 substitutions, 3 for us, 2 for them, and what a change.
Totally just turns the tide of the game. And again, I mean, it's still fairly scrappy, but the Rovers are then getting in and around that Dundee United back line. And we've not talked about the referee too much. There's obviously not always the kind of best use of time, but I am going to just take a second. That Scott McMahon, when Connolly goes by him and he just pulls him down as he's breaking into the box, as clear a yellow card as you'll ever see.
And then I don't know. They go right up the pitch, and then the same thing happens. Their player gets hacked down, and then it's not a booking.
So I'm gonna put my cards on the table here. I disagree, and I'm gonna lay forward my case for it. As much as I wanted the boy to be sent off, he doesn't pull him in the slightest. So Connolly gets in front of him and does that thing that all good forwards do of getting a step in front of somebody and just slowing down. And because Connolly's a lot smaller than him, he ends up just bundling on top of him. But his hands are literally not. He's not dragged him to the floor, which is the only reason I don't think he gets booked. It's a foul all day, but I don't think. I wouldn't have given a booking either. I think had he not been booked, he might have got a first booking for it. But that kind of unofficial extra little bit that's needed for a second booking kind of thing, I'm not convinced was there. I actually thought this goes against everything I believe in. I thought the referee had a pretty good night, actually, to be honest.
As much as I would love to wire into the conspiracy theories, I think that in general he was okay. And my mate that was next to me was very vocal about it. But
I was thinking about, because I actually thought the same thing this morning. I was thinking, the referee had quite a good game. And I was like, although I did think that boy should have been sent off. Well, and the goal was offside. And there might have been a foul for our goal. And then Tony Watt dived twice in a minute, didn't get booked. Then elbowed Liam Dick in the dish, didn't get booked. Squared up.
Watson was lucky not to get a red, to be fair, at one point.
When he choked the boy with his collar.
Yeah.
I did enjoy
I don't know,
Zach
I mean,
Rudden's post-match interview where BBC Scotland said to him, "You were offside for your goal," and he went, "Yeah, but it counted." And it was like,
it's a goal.
It's a goal.
See, going back to that offside, I meant to mention it when we were talking about the goal itself. It's the bit that really annoys me about the offside rule is that there is no advantage for Zach Rudden at that point, because that freeze frame that they show you where he's effectively his right hand side of his body is kind of offside, and his left side of his body's onside. If you actually watch it, he's moving to his left, so he fully comes onside before he plays the ball. So there is absolutely zero advantage. He's not gained any advantage whatsoever from being in an offside position. So it's one of those really stupid things where, like, you know, that we see it all the time with VAR, and I'm so glad we don't have it. But your toes offside. Who gives a shit? Like, come on, what is the advantage of your right toe being offside? Like, it's nonsense. And the free kick, sorry, the goal that they score, yeah, maybe it was a foul, but Dick was given as good as he was getting, to be fair. It was a 50-50 thing. It could have went either way. Like, I love not having VAR.
Definitely. And I think you're right, with the offside. It's like, yeah, I think that's the mitigation for the linesman. Like Scott, you said earlier on, he's far away, and you got a lot of moving parts, and it is Rudden is coming back the way as the defender's coming in, so you can absolutely see how he's not kind of spotted that. I think we've probably danced around for long enough. Do you want to talk about the goal?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Good. Then.
Robbie, talk us through it then. And then we'll all give our reactions to this one, I think.
Yeah, I put on Twitter about like the whole monkey doing the works of Shakespeare as like the theory of how things work. Broken clock being right twice a day, etc. And that's the case with this podcast. We actually got something that we can be relatively like, actually, we called that one right. So, quick throw in. Sorry, Jim. Hate to send you into tears about that one. But quick throw in, gets headed out. Scott Brown takes it down absolutely beautifully, just launches it. And as soon as it leaves his boot, you're thinking, oh, this is interesting. And then within half a second later, you see the net rolling, the ball just straight into the top corner. Absolutely tremendous. And there was just absolute carnage, like 3 Leslie Mabins just appearing in the chat right now, which is why everyone's creasing themselves. But yeah, we'll continue on and progress. Just ridiculous, just brilliant, absolutely. The scenes at the end after that goal, I couldn't believe it. I genuinely couldn't believe that he'd hit it. It was much like Easton up at Tannadice. I struggled to celebrate the goal because it was so good. And it was the same with Scott Brown. Just sheer disbelief.
Yeah.
I didn't struggle at all.
I've managed to
I absolutely lost myself.
I've scraped up the back of one of my legs. And I've got no idea how I did it. I can only assume.
Did you have holes in the back of your socks or your calves?
It feels like I probably should have done, but I can only assume it was literally jumping up into the air when that went in, and then I've come down and my right leg's come down like the because the seats come up. I just like a proper madness.
It was great.
And then it's like everybody says, oh, you could see, like, for the minutes left, its foot's going in. I didn't think that at all. I was like, oh, he's done really well with that. It's a shame it's going to go over the bar. And just seeing it, I just clip in there.
I see where we sit in the south stand. It's that thing of, obviously, everybody sees it from a different angle, but we're really lucky where we sit. He literally hit the ball in almost a straight line towards where we sit. So you could see it was on target. You're right, it looked like it was potentially looping over, but it was one of those where he hit it, and we all went, oh. And then as it got closer, we're going, it's fucking going in. Like, it was just that moment, because it seemed to take forever to kind of loop over and go in. But I want to give a really special shout out and a massive thank you to Tony Watt, because without Tony Watt, that goal doesn't happen. It's all Tony Watt's fault, right? So, the manager has lined up these substitutions on the 74th minute, but he's only lined up Easton and Connolly. He's got them stripped. He's got them ready to go. He's making a double substitution, and Tony Watt tries to break Sean Byrne's face. And when he breaks his face, he forces him to bring on Captain Fantastic Scott Brown. So without Tony Watt, none of this, not one bit of this would have been possible. So thanks, Tony.
It's a real kicker that Sean Burns got as well. I didn't realise that until this morning when I saw it back.
Neither did I. Bad.
It doesn't look fun at all. I mean,
Full weight of Tony Watt in your face is going to do that to you, though, isn't it?
Yeah. When he went down the tunnel, he was kind of had his head down. I thought, like, actually, I think he's just trying to see where he's going as much as anything.
There's another Rocky IV reference in there somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. And we didn't even mention the fact that James Brown is in Rocky IV as well.
I was going to say that, yeah.
Back on that.
Coast to coast. Yeah.
Right, Scott, give me your thoughts on the goal as well, please. I think we've just lost Les. I think Les is gone.
Yeah, I think, we had 3 of them, obviously. We're down to 2, but... it was just one of them ones, and as we've said, I just knew it was going in as soon as he's hit it. It was just the perfect dip, the perfect strike, and you're just going... The keeper could stand on the line, and I still don't know if he'll get it. Like, just in that space, just how perfect. It's dipped just under the bar, into the back of the net, and you're just going... And then, I mean, I lost myself in here, and I was just like... I can't even imagine what would have been like in the stand. Like, it was... Everybody's just going absolutely ballistic.
Carnage.
Then you're just seeing, obviously, once the camera's like panning around the whole crowd and just seeing folk absolutely just bedlam in the stand, and then you're going... There's actually going to be another 6 minutes here. Like, oh no. But to be honest, I thought once, obviously, that goal had gone in, we actually looked like we had dealt with it in a good way in terms of they came back at us, but we just dealt with it so easily compared to what we normally would have done. But no, brilliant goal, and it's up there for goal of the season.
Categorically. Absolutely. Leslie, I think you're back. Give me your thoughts on the goal, please.
So it happened so quickly, I did not know what was actually happening. I was watching it on television. I was watching it on BBC Scotland, and like the camera work on BBC Scotland last night, it was like the Bourne ultimatum. You know, it kept cutting and wobbling and going to different things. I was expecting at some point Matt Damon to start walking with purpose across the pitch. So I wasn't quite entirely sure what was happening. And this thrown comes in, the ball gets cleared, and then Scott Brown gets it. You see he's going to have a shot. And it was one of those ones where I was in the living room, I was standing up, and you kind of just go quiet, like, what the fuck just happened there? And when I watched the replay back this morning on Raith TV, you can see he hits it, and of course there's a big roar when the ball goes in the net, but then there's this kind of sub-roar, this kind of mini-roar, about half a second before, where everybody realises what's about to happen. And it's just brilliant, because you hear this kind of like, whoa, yeah! You know, this little kind of, people are realising, oh, that was a really stupid thing to do, that's a waste of possession. Oh, actually, hang on, maybe this isn't actually so bad. Oh my God, he scored a thunder bastard. You know, you had all this happening. And then seeing the guys celebrating. I mean, I'm watching Louis Vaughan jumping around like a wee kid. I mean, he's jumping around in the pitch and dancing about. And I mean, just an absolutely terrific goal. You know, like we said before, Scott Brown has got that in his locker. Even then, to do that from that distance, and just to think, you know, having a crack and getting it close enough. Oh, what a goal! One of those ones that makes me really wish I'd actually.
I'm dining out on that one. I am dining out on that one.
Yeah,
I wanted to
Nostradamus here.
I wanted to mention Louis Vaughan because his reaction, and it's so worth watching. Obviously, everybody will be watching this goal again and again and again, and on one of your many watches through, just pay attention to Vaughan when they're celebrating, because when obviously the players all go together, he kind of drops out of the group. And what he reminds me of is, see, if you go out for like a couple hours and you've left the dog in the house, and then when you come home, the dog's just like too excited. It's like we've got a wee spaniel, and she has like more feelings than she can possibly express, and she just starts burling round. That's what Vaughan's doing. He's just kind of like, all of his thoughts and all of his feelings are just bursting out of him. And it's it was brilliant to see.
The pitch side cam and the 360 cam are two bits in particular that jump out. The 360 cam's obviously a new addition, and I love the shoot, and then just like half a second later the ball's in the net. But the one I enjoyed was Ben's pitch side cam, because you see Liam Dick fly down the wing and just Graham Meldrum-esque celebrations where he just absolutely tears right in front, going mental. But that's one that's special mention to Craigerson, is it? On the lad that's got this son doing the videos, did the commentary with Raith TV, and they had him in. He's caught that perfectly from the stand, and he commentates it, and it's doing the rounds now. It's been done, like Jonathan Sutherland and things are all starting to retweet it, and it's just the passion. And again, that's why you go to your local football games, isn't it? For moments like that, sold out crowd at Starks Park. We're seeing things that we've never seen before, like the roof of the south stand getting hit by a shot. Never seen that before in my life. Cheers, Louis Moat. But then
he took it well, though. To be fair to him,
aye,
credit where it's due. He took it well.
You have moments like that goal that for these younger fans, that's even for older fans, it's one that you're going to be talking about for years to come. And we've had so many moments like that in the past before. They come up very rarely, and it's a bit. I always think of like going to your local football team. It's like Dire Straits, the song "Sultans of Swing," like where Mark Knopfler walks into a pub and he basically sees a band that are absolutely terrible playing, but full of passion about what they're doing, and they call themselves the Sultans of Swing, which is this really grand name, but it's absolutely dross. Now, watching a local football team at this level for a lot of the time can be very difficult. You go through a lot of seasons, like last season, for example. Last season, we just got that 1-1 draw away at Ochil View against Queen's Park with Willie Akio doing front flips. And then you go from that to this. What a change it is, and we're all here for it.
I love that Sultans of Swing reference. That's really apt. That's a really good one. So that let's just move on from the goal for a bit. We can come back to it again. I'm sure we will.
I was going to say definitely,
but still, there was still kind of 5 minutes to go, or 6 minutes to go. 5 minutes went up on the board, and for kind of 4.5 of those minutes, Rovers did pretty well, just actually kind of keeping Dundee United at arm's length. But as there always seems to be, there's one big chance. The boy pops up with a header in the box, and it's a huge save from Kevin Dabrowski, who had an excellent game. Had his usual kind of couple of moments where he makes that kind of early decision to commit to a punch when the ball's in the air. That's not necessarily everybody's cup of tea, but fundamentally he deals with them, and he's not kind of he's not giving anything away, and then he's making these big saves. And I think the point that we've reached now, certainly that I have anyway, with Kevin Dabrowski, is you kind of expect that from him now.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't taken by surprise when he made that save at the end. It was very much the way that I felt when we had David McGurn, where it's like, I'm glad he's there doing that.
Yeah.
But like, because that's what he does. Was kind of at the start of the season, we were like, still obviously this new guy, and he made a couple of big saves, and it's like, oh, that is a good save in isolation. Whereas now it's just like, he is a good goalie, and that's what good goalies do. Blair, give me your thoughts actually just on Kevin Dabrowski in this game, and just generally actually, now that we've had him for a fair bit of time.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty vocal at the beginning about not being comfortable with Big Kev. He's so different to what we're used to. The goalies we've had, I've kind of gone through this conversation before, but the goalies we've had have all been pretty steady, dependable kind of goalkeepers. He's very much a younger generation, and is far more athletic than what we're used to. There are still moments that my heart skips a beat with him, I must admit, but I am 100% there for it. I love the guy. There's the one in the first half. He takes the back pass, and his first touch can only be described as rank rotten, out to his left-hand side, and then he kind of scoops the ball up the left wing. And I was like, oh yeah. But like you say, those saves, if nothing else, we've just come to expect them now. Like it's just part and parcel of having him in the goal. And he did it. He's done it a few times this season, but there was the one. I think it was against the Pars. Was it the first game that we beat them 1-0 at home? I think it was the Sam Stanton goal, and then he made a big save shortly after it, or maybe it was the one away from home. But it's that thing of, and again, South Stand, you're watching it, he makes that save, there's another celebration, it's another big kind of yas moment, like we are just kind of moments away from doing this. My favourite thing about Kev, though, was he'd been at the opening of the Abbey, the Abbott's Hall Hotel is opened back up again. Dennis O'Connell has opened it, and so the opening was, it was last Friday or something, last weekend anyway. And Kev and I think a few of the other players had gone along to the opening of it, and had promised that when we beat Dundee United, he would rock up and serve beers in his full kit. And there is a photo doing the rounds of him. I think it's Jim O'Connell, Dennis's brother, that's put it up. But he's basically behind the bar back at midnight last night, pulling pints in his full kit. And I love that. Like, I love the way he's ingrained himself into the community and being part of the club. And I mean, even just the way he embraced the nonsense memorabilia that we're selling with his face on it, like, he loves it. And he's class. I also saw, I don't know if anybody else saw it this morning, there was a tweet for some Dundee United fan saying, I'm on the train and the goalie from last night is sitting watching the highlights of himself on BBC with the volume up on the train. And I am 100% there for it. Love the guy.
This Christina was saying that he was in the McGregor lounge after the game as well, and they were just dancing around him, which is an incredibly funny image as well.
Yeah.
Just
especially when the average age of the McGregor lounge is about 104. So yeah, the idea of them all dancing, I can imagine Christina having a go. I'm not so sure about Willie and his pals, but maybe.
Don't bring your inter-club rivalry onto this podcast, please. Right. Any more? On this kind of last couple of minutes of this game.
I think just to acknowledge, on you go, Robbie, I'll come in after.
Nah, you first, Leslie.
While I'm here. I just to acknowledge again, Sam Stanton, 87 minutes or whatever. He's been out for 2 months, and Keith Watson as well, and we touched on him earlier. Two guys that have been out with pretty nasty injuries for a good few months, coming in and doing, in their first and second games back respectively, a whole shift. And that's a whole shift where they didn't put anything wrong. We weren't treating them with a kid glove, straight in. And that's a credit to both of them for their rehab, and also to the guys behind the scenes for getting them into a condition where they can come straight back in and be super competitive. So just a word for our returnees. And Ross Matthews too. Again, great to see him on the pitch for a few minutes as well after everything.
I think that with Ross Matthews, that was one that I would want to touch on, that it's good to see him back on the pitch. I know Carroll had been quite vocal about it, and I'm sure he wants more time, but he just fitted it perfectly. And he's a consummate professional as well. That's what you can say about Ross Matthews. I know that a lot's been said about stuff that maybe has happened over the last wee while, and we'll leave that within the club. I feel like there's a sort of duty after last night that you leave that within the club. They sort it out. It's not for us. Everyone's going to speculate. That's human nature. But we've fully hoisted ourselves back in a situation where every one of their fans, the Dundee United fans, and everyone in Scottish football thought, Raith have fallen apart. We're going to be 7 points clear. We can proceed to the title. Let's see how we're going. They turned into a Tangerine Morton, basically, at the end of that game. They just pumped balls into the box and just tried to see what stuck, and we handled it very, very well. They lost all their composure. Full credit to the defence for getting us over the line, and for Ian Murray for how the game was organised, for making the big calls. He's changed the game for the better. Jim Goodwin changed it for the worst. A lot of people will talk about things like luck, and Dundee United tweeting about how they didn't assert their dominance. You can ram your dominance. Scott Brown, beautiful goal, fully deserved. Just make of that what you will.
Yeah, to go back to Jim Goodwin for a second, that was another thing that he said where he was like, once we went 2-1 down, I was disappointed that we were just launching it long. So if only there was someone who could sort of manage that situation better for Dundee United. don't know, maybe coach them into doing something different, and possibly something to look into, Jim. I just, while we're kind of giving out kind of props to people there, and as you say, Les, you've got Sam Stanton and Keith Watson coming back in, and Ross Matthews. Just to go back to James Brown a little bit as well. Obviously, he's not coming off an injury, but coming into a brand new side. In his interview, and we talked about it on Thursday night, he talked about wanting to kind of defend first and foremost. It's very much his game. I thought he absolutely did that, and I thought he was exactly what we needed last night. Really aggressive defending as far as kind of fullbacks go. Saw that in the first half in particular, just, sticking his head where he got hurt. But you could tell, you got Glenn Middleton on that side. He knew straight away he wasn't going to have an easy night, and I don't think he ever really managed to get a couple of kind of low crosses in, but he didn't have a great time. Scott, you want to just give me your thoughts on kind of James Brown on his debut?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think he kind of did exactly what he said he was going to do, as you say. Like he didn't stand out, but he didn't do anything wrong. He did just exactly what he needs to do for what. Well, yeah, either when he's got the ball, give it to your midfield, better players, that sort of thing, and then when you've not got the ball, keep it tight, be good communication wise with your centre half that's next to you, and then clear anything that comes your way. And he did exactly everything like that. I mean, it's one of these sort of, and it's only one game a bit early, but he reminds me of a sort of defender that's going to be like just a 7 out of 10 every week. He's not going to be anything crazy, but he's going to be nowhere near anything that bad either. He's just going to be consistent every time. And if we can get that for the last, 13 games that we've got in the league, it's going to really help us. Because, I mean, look, we've had Ross Millen up to now, and Ross Millen has got attributes that probably James Brown doesn't have in terms of whipping a ball into the box and sort of driving up and down that line. But James Brown, as a defender, which he's meant to be first and foremost, is so much better in terms of heading a ball clear. We've actually got a right back that likes to head in a ball, so I'm all for it. And then we've got also just, he seems to know when his man's trying to ghost behind him as well, which he was more aware of where his position is. Again, something that Ross Millen I don't think wasn't great at. So I just think that overall, last night it was an easy pass mark, and hopefully it's the same going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I thought he did really, really well. Good communication with him and Josh Mullen as well. It's a game where you need your wide. We talked about Callum Smith earlier. You need your wide players picking up. Scott McMahon's always going to want to go beyond. I thought Josh Mullen, we talked a fair bit in the early part of the season. He was almost disguising his running stats somehow. We kept getting the numbers that he's running further than anyone, but it was a little bit, personally, you weren't necessarily, that wasn't the kind of gut feel, sort of eyeball wise. And that's a good thing to have the stats to kind of show you where you're wrong. Last night I thought was the opposite. Last night I thought you could see every one of the yards that he was doing. I think Josh Mullen never stopped until he went off. It was just a really, really good performance. And obviously I don't think there was any failures there. We were talking, walking down the hill after the game last night, talking to my dad, and he was saying, if that game had ended in a draw, you'd still have clapped that Rovers side off. If 100%. Dundee United had scored a last minute goal, I think you'd still have clapped that Rovers side off, because all the effort, all the endeavour was there. You take your last minute winners when you get them, but it was a really good performance.
You didn't have the soft underbelly that we've seen before.
Yeah, exactly. We'll do a quick round on kind of man of the match, and I suppose just to mention anybody we've maybe not given enough praise to up till this point. Vonnie in particular, we've hardly mentioned. Had a good game.
I was going to say, Duncan, sorry, just very quickly before we move on, just on James Brown, there was like a 3-4 minute period in that first half where he epitomised everything that Scott had said, and I'd been quite critical of Ross Millen about kind of his ability to header and his ability to defend the way that we needed to defend. But there's the one where he gets McCann the book in, he comes out and he basically nicks in front of McCann, and McCann wipes him out. I'm sorry, Millen doesn't do that. There's no way Millen puts his foot in for that ball. And then, like you said, the one where he put his head in and he got a head knock, it was only about 2 or 3 minutes later, but he got a right ding, and Millen's not doing that. Like, he just isn't. It's so good to have a defender that's got that kind of fire in him. Like, Millen's a tidy footballer. He really is, and he plays some really nice stuff. But it's not what we needed. We need that kind of. We talked already about blood and thunder, but we kind of needed that. So it was nice. It was nice to see that. Sorry, I'll let you carry on.
No, you can keep going and just give us your man of the match, please.
Really tough, actually. I kind of agreed with Big Kev getting it, more for the fact that I felt the team performance was really, really good, but I didn't actually think that there was any one player where you would go, they were absolutely outstanding, head and shoulders above everybody else on the pitch. It was one of those games where nobody particularly stood out for any long periods of time, but that's not a bad thing.
Everyone had an 8 out of 10. They had a 10 out of 10.
The standards were so high across the pitch that Kev's saves probably stood him out. I was really pleased to see Dylan Easton do so well when he came on. He looked far more like the Dylan Easton that was at Tannadice the first time round. He looked hungry. He looked well up for it, and he always is up for it. But we've talked a lot about how he was almost trying too hard at times, and things just weren't coming off for him. But there was a couple of moments last night where I thought, it's getting back towards a kind of a fit and firing Dylan Easton again, which is a good thing. But yeah, probably Kev would be my man of the match. More, as Robbie says, more because he was the only one who was probably above an 8 out of 10.
I thought the same thing. It's always the same when you get the kind of the Tannoy announcement comes up, and immediately you're like, well, who would I have gone? And I think I couldn't argue with Kevin Dabrowski. There wasn't like, sometimes you raise a few eyebrows when it comes up, and you wonder how much the
sponsors just really want to meet someone.
Or they just want to meet somebody. I think on balance, I would maybe have argued for Keith Watson more for just almost the kind of tone that he sets and the kind of implicit leadership that you get from him. That kind of defence, as we said, is very, very solid, and I think he's a huge part of that. And I really, really like what you get from him. And there's just no messing about. There's no unpredictability. But yeah, certainly wouldn't be going to try and take Kev's champagne off him to make that a case. Les, give me your thoughts on Man of the Match, and anybody you'd like to give a wee clap to, please.
I think I wouldn't disagree with that. Dabrowski would have been my pick, and possibly Watson as well. But in general, what a difference it makes to actually have 4 defenders playing in defence. Who'd have thought it? Who'd have thought that could actually improve the performances somehow? And as well, I think there's getting back to a situation where we're not trying to get all the attackers on the pitch at once, and that you accept that they don't all start the game. So, as you know, I like my references, and I'm going to bring another Tomb Raider reference, and I'm going to go to Tomb Raider 3 this time, and the India levels, where you've got all kinds of wild species, and sometimes like you press a button, and then it goes to a cutscene, and then you see something, and one bit you pull a lever, and then it goes to this video of just like tigers getting released, and you don't know where it is, and you don't know what's going to happen. That's how I felt when the subs got made, and then Brown comes on, Easton comes on, Connolly comes on. It was like, okay, that's it. Somewhere a tiger cage has been opened. These tigers are coming on the pitch. And sure enough, within a few minutes, we'd started, then it turned the game. So, just getting back to that position where, and I think Murray said it himself, in the interview on BBC, the Eddie Jones thing, they're not substitutes, they're finishers. You're releasing the tigers. They're not there on the bench because they're inferior, but it's getting that mindset. Murray was saying in his interview, he kind of said to the guys, look, because you're not starting doesn't mean you're valued less. You're needed at a different point in the game. So for me, the defender's been back and the tiger cage being back, and having that respect back where you can just say, right, you're going to come on, you're going to make your contribution somewhere down the line, was just so nice to see that back.
100%. Scott, your man of the match thoughts, please.
I got excited there.
Yeah, I think I'd probably just give it to Big Kev as well. I mean, I think also that last minute save as well kind of just vindicated it right at the end, just going, right enough, fair play. And I mean, he made two big saves in the first half that really kept the game at, well, it was at 0-0 and one at 1-1. So I think, yeah, without Kev last night, could have been a different result, obviously, but I think as Blair said earlier today, like, he's everything that we've not had in a keeper. We've had Jamie McDonald, Davy McGurn, all safe hands, brilliant keepers, but Kev just has that something, that sort of X factor, they would say, about him. But there is things that make you worried at the same time. But that's probably why it makes you love him even more when it's going well. But and the fact he's a great guy as well. But yeah, I think if I was to go somebody slightly different as well, off of what people have gone with, I thought for an hour Zach Rudden was brilliant last night, just in terms of linking the play. He's only been with us for a few weeks, and the partnership he's got with Vaughan was what Hamilton and Vaughan started to get recently, but it's taken them 4 months to get that, and it's taken Rudden and Vaughan 3 weeks. So I don't know if it's just the style that Rudden is, that it suits Vaughan's game or whatever, but the two of them were just cutting passing lanes out and just making Dundee United recycle the ball constantly instead of getting the pass that they want every time. So I thought that Rudden, yeah, you could tell that he kind of ran his race by the hour mark, but he put in so much in that hour that I thought for that time being, I thought he was brilliant. And as you say, it could have gone to anybody last night, and nobody would argue to it.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, Robbie, final word on this one
Yeah.
from you, please.
I think that across the pitch, we've already touched on that everyone was an 8, pretty much. Everyone performed their duties, so a bit probably cliched to go different on this, but I would actually give the man of the match to Ian Murray. I know that he didn't play, but at the same time, he got all the big calls right and used the squad very well. You've got to remember that a lot of people just assumed that we were going to be going on to another loss, and that we'd had, 3, 4, 5 on the losses on the row. It's all about the perspective, because the perspective now completely flips and it changes. It goes from being, we lost 3 league games, but then we beat United, to bring it back to being a point behind them. So the whole mentality shift from last night is, I've said before that the result at Tannadice, if we beat them at Tannadice, which we did, it was going to be seismic. And I feel like it's another huge result. It's all about how we move forward with it. That's games done now, 13 games to go. But credit to Ian Murray, because there's been a lot of chat about off the pitch stuff that's happened and what's going on, and he's got the comfort of that 3-year deal, and there could have been a bit of pressure that had they not signed that deal, that people might have said, oh well, should we get rid of him, should we stick or twist? He's answered a lot of the questions last night by putting out that stable lineup, getting back to basics, what we want to see as fans. We just wanted to see a solid defensive performance, and we got that using the players. We'd spoken before about how we've got that depth that we can rely on, and he used the subs very, very well. There was no sort of signs of, as far as I could make, what might be potentially perceived to be favouritism, because you saw that Ross Matthews came on ahead of Kyle Turner, a player that he's worked with before, who's held in very high esteem. And I still think Kyle Turner is going to be a very big player for us at some point. I just don't know when it's going to be yet. I still think he's going to make a big difference. And I feel like he's going to be very similar to Rudden, that people will maybe question it initially, but then we'll see the longer term value. So, yeah, huge credit to the management for getting that result and changing how everyone's perspective is, because it's been sorely needed. And I hope that we can turn a corner and kick on, because it has been a sticky patch. Everyone knows that. But it's all about how we move forward, and we can hopefully now put that behind us and say, well, we went through our sticky spell, and if we can kick on and start winning games again and put that bit more pressure on United, because they'll have seen that as the opportunity to go forward. And I touched on that before. I think like their fans almost have a patronising nature to them almost, where if you look at them online especially, there's, you got the result at Tannadice, but your luck's run out now. And it's almost like before, it's like, yeah, you have done really well to keep up with us, you have done so well. But now the script is that they've lost 2 games against us and drawn 1. They're not invincible. I touched on before, but Jim Spence, like before he went, oh, can United go the season unbeaten? Well, we can't because we beat them at Tannadice. Then the Courier are releasing articles about, oh, how does Dundee United's invincible away record stack up compared to the rest of Europe? Now that's gone. Jim Spence was talking about if they beat Ayr down, how they needed to go down to Ayr and get a result, which to be fair they did. That's really going to put the boot and put down Raith Rovers' title challenge for good. Sorry, Jim, but you've not been watching this, have you? What's going on there? Is we've went and we've beaten United and we've held it back. So the pressure is all on United. I really want to make that clear. The pressure is 100% on Dundee United because they're absolutely spunking thousands of pounds on players, individual players each week, that they need to be getting out of this league. That's not impetus on us. We would see the playoffs were a good result for us at the start of the season. Ross Matthews said it before the start of the game. If you'd got into that position where if we'd won last night, which we have, we go a point behind towards the end of February. So the pressure is all on Dundee United. There is absolutely zero on us. Like, we're just having a great time. So, aye, long may it continue.
Yeah, and we know how well Jim Goodwin copes under pressure, so that'll be nice. Right, let's just jump into our big question for this afternoon. So we're going to go right back to an early favourite when we had a look at our favourite goals into the North Stand. But Scott Brown has obviously added one right to the very top table of goals into the South End. So I just want to hear about some of your other favourites. Really, this should be a nice little whip round kind of memory lane. Scott, let's start with you, please. Any that you want to kind of throw in?
Yeah, I referenced it as soon as the ball had hit the back of the net. Am I just watching on repeat Alan Walker for 2011? Like, it was. I've watched it back again this morning. The only difference is he didn't chest the ball. The goal is the exact same. And then obviously Alan Walker's one has clipped the bar as it's gone in, but it was just both of them, just the exact same goal, was it 12, 13 years on. And they were both 89th minute winners to make it 2-1, which just even makes it more ridiculous.
You know what the funnier thing
and
as well?
It was one's against Dundee, one's against Dundee United.
There's also the fact that before each of the goals with Walker's one, we take a quick free kick that's like about 5 yards further forward that then gets lofted in and he hammers it home. With this, it was a quick throw-in that was about 5 yards back, but we gained the advantage from it. So,
both are superb, and I just think, to be honest, I do actually think Brown's is probably better than Alan Walker's, but just the fact that they're so similar that I had to just bring up Alan Walker's goal.
Yeah, that was exactly where my mind went as well. But as you say, in the instant after it, I've seen this story before, and it's a good one. Leslie, your favourite goal into the South Stand, please.
In an alternative reality, my favourite goal into the South Stand would have been Kai Fotheringham's 5th against Hamilton a couple of seasons ago. But as we all know, he shat the bed and smashed it off the bar. So that didn't happen. But what really is my favourite goal is Gregory Taddy against Dunfermline in the New Year derby. This is one that I didn't see live because I was in Japan at the time getting engaged, but my brother-in-law printed out the match report on sheets of A4 for me and passed it, and I saw the photos. And it was only a few days later that I saw the video. And, you know, just the ball gets kind of bounces forward, and Taddy does what he does so well, which is just sprint, burst through the two defenders. What as we all know, Gregory Taddy did not do so well was shoot accurately on targets. You know, I remember as one of his first games, I think it was a friendly against Norwich, and he did the same thing, where he ran on a ball, knocked it down, burst past two defenders, knocked it around the keeper, and then took an air shot and slipped and fell on his arse. And that was in front of the North Stand. So you were thinking, well, he's going to do the same here, but he didn't. He knocked it down, and a beautiful composed finish as the whole stand rises behind him. To give us a crowning glorious New Year derby victory. So for me, just because of the quality of the finish, the quality of the build-up, and the significance of the occasion, I'm going with Gregory Taddy against Dunfermline in the New Year derby.
I'm just going to jump into that one. I actually took one of my friends from uni. He was a lad from Russia. He passed away, unfortunately, a few years ago in an accident. But he didn't want to go back to Russia for New Year. New Year is actually the bigger celebration in Russia compared to Christmas. So I was like, oh, just come and stay with my family. It'll be fine. So we went out, got absolutely smashed that New Year. Went out and had a few on the first after as well. And I took him along on the game on the second, and I was like, oh, it's a derby. He's never been to a big football game before. The city was in Nizhny Novgorod, didn't have like a big football team. He came along to that game, and his one comment was, it was exceptionally cold. A Russian complaining about the cold at the football. But it was so funny because when Tadej scored that goal, you just completely, it's the way football is, just, you know how people get overexcited, even though it's maybe not your team. He was standing on one of the chairs on someone's shoulders, giving it the big licks. But yeah, just a great memory for someone that's fondly missed, really. And just funny how life works, and really good guy. So good laugh.
And Robbie, if you just keep the mic and give us your favourite goal, please.
Right, we're getting the cathartic one firstly, which just because you had your house on it, Duncan, and when we were chatting about it, it's Robert Sloane's free kick against Brechin, because it's funny. I had the video up on YouTube of that back before smartphones and stuff like that, and my mate actually shouts, it's never 10 yards about that wall that's there, which is very ironic, but he was the original one for that. So we might need to get a patent on that and start racking in the fines from along the road. But just a tremendous hit, and just so cathartic, as I say, because there was all this expectation that season. We'd done so well to claw back after Raith had celebrated winning the league with 10 games to go at Starks Park. And Jim would have absolutely hated that one. And just a brilliant finish from a player that we will think the world of. Technical wise, I'm going with James Craigan. If you get a chance to watch Kev Barretto, he's got the video of that one, as he does with many of them. I'll probably link it into our Twitter after, but what a finish that was. Just kneed it down and scalped it into the top. And it was a season that was really good because we'd never really had as many of those technically gifted players, and Craigan was just a real asset to the team and did so well for us in that season. And a very, very good finish. So those are my two picks.
Perfect. Blair, your shout for this, please.
Oh man, there's so many. We spoke a wee bit before the show about a goal that, like last night's, every time I think of it, gets about 5 yards further away from the goal. So in my head, it's a game from the 2008-2009 season, so the one where we went up. Gary Wales at home at Peterhead. So the story is he'd missed a penalty in the game, and it was the only penalty apparently he missed in his entire career. And I love the fact that he was so annoyed at missing that penalty that he hits a shot from, I don't know, like the North Stand car park or something, and it just cannons in. And to be fair, it was Robbie that said earlier on that YouTube is the worst thing that's ever happened to that goal, because when you see it, he's not quite as far out as you remember. And the keeper probably should have done a bit better, but it's just one of them off the bar, like just an absolute beauty of a goal.
It was funny though, because
Gary Wales, Peterhead.
Gary Wales one, I don't think we'd scored a wonder goal at Starks in a good few years, like at least 3 or 4 years. Like maybe the Blackadder one against Cowdenbeath was probably one up the north end. It was like really, Scott Crabbe had an absolute belter as well, but we'd not really had one for years. And it was such an unassuming game. Like it was just a game against Peterhead with their 6 fans that they bring. We were comfortable, and then he just does that, and you just feel, oh, this might be a bit of a special season. So
yeah, that was going to be my pick as well. It's the one that always springs to mind if I think about like the best goal I've seen live. And I think the thing I like about that is that the keeper, as you say, maybe possibly should have done slightly better. But he was a big, giant, kind of Polish guy who I think had moved to Peterhead to work on a fishing boat or something like that. And he was like 6'7". So it's not one of these where you're like, oh, it's just a wee goalie and you've managed to squeeze it in. Like he sees it the whole way. He's got his hands up, and somehow Gary Wills has still managed to get it between the boys' hands and the bar. So it's a really, really aesthetically pleasing goal. from a really aesthetically pleasing footballer, to be fair. Gary was brilliant to watch. Just
Yeah, he was.
a really, really decent player. Right, brilliant. Well, listen, I think that'll bring us to the end for today. I think, to be honest, we could probably record another one of these tomorrow and just talk about this game all over again.
Can we?
Or maybe just do 40 minutes on the goal. So, as always, thank you to everybody for listening and for watching. You may or may not be aware it's London Fashion Week this week, and like all the big labels, we are also kind of showing off our new lines. A couple of new items hit the Etsy shop this morning, so absolutely go and have a look there, see what Naomi Campbell's going to be in next season, and stick in an order if you'd like to do so. The link is in the show notes. We will be back later in the week. Look ahead to the all-conquering hero Scott Brown versus the failed Fleetwood Town manager Scott Brown when the Rovers head down to Ayr United next weekend. So we will see you then. Goodbye.